So can y'all see my chart?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is just a candle chart, and it kind of shows you green is are up days, reds are down days. So we're all over the place, right? So let's take a look at some of the so let's start with, and speaking of how many different indicators, so this is on trading view. So if you click on here and you put technical, these are all of the different indicators that you could choose, which is crazy. So let's start with Bollinger Bands. So this is, and let me make sure it's set up the yeah, it's 2 standard. Okay, so here is the same chart using a Bollinger Band. So remember we said about if it goes above or below a level, it tends to reverse. So here you could see down here, it got down below the Bollinger Band and went back up. So, and then you can see here, it went above the Bollinger Band and pulled back. So I like to, if you've ever done bowling with a little kid and they have those bumper lanes, that's what a Bollinger Band looks like to me. It comes down, you bounce off the one lane and it moves back towards the middle. And it generally stays within the lanes. So it's a great indicator, and it shows, overbought and oversold conditions. And again, I have it on a daily. If you did it on a 5-minute chart, it would do the same thing. It shows you, when it's overbought, and we don't have any that were really oversold, but it's the same kind of situation. So let's go back to the daily. Okay, so that is the Bollinger Band. So I'll leave that one on there, and then I'll add another one, the MACD. And here it is. So here is the MACD, and you can, so here is when the stock moves, or the MACD moves from green to red, that's usually a sell signal. It's selling off, and now and when it starts to move back up, then and it moves into a green, back into green, then people look to say, that is when I want to buy the stock. So a lot of people kind of use that as, they'll be watching this. So like this one, they'll watch it and it'll start to move up, and then eventually it moves to a positive. So that's when somebody would actually probably be thinking of buying around that level. And then once it peaks out, then they would look to get out of the trade, or at least, lighten up their position. So that's kind of the MACD. So let's get out of that one because I don't want to clutter them up too far. So let's look at RSI, Relative Strength Index. And to me, this one is a nice one because it shows you when a stock is, completely oversold. It breaks below that 30 level, or if it gets above this 70 level, then it would tend to be overbought. So a lot of times people will look at this and say, okay, now once it starts to, now it's gotten my attention. It's below the, the completely oversold situation. So I'd be looking to say, okay, is this a time for a reversal? Does that make sense? So that's RSI, Relative Strength Index. And then the simple moving averages, you can just type in moving average. And one of the things that you'll find is you need to tell them what moving average to use. So in this one, we can set it up so, like, say it's a 20-day moving average. And let me get rid of this Bollinger Band so we can say, okay, so here's the moving average. And so a lot of times someone would say, if a stock is below a key moving average, then it's bearish. And when it moves above it, it's bullish. So let's do a 50-day moving average, because that's one of the measurements we use in our market scorecard, right? We say, is the stock more than 5% above the 50-day moving average? So here's our moving average. And right here, it was well above, 5% above the moving average. And then it sold off, and it really it got a little bit, close up here, and then it rolled over, and now it looks like it wants to move up. But that is the moving average. So one of the other measurements that you could use is using two moving averages. So you just program it to a different, let's just do a 9. So and we'll differentiate it just so we can tell them apart. Okay, so the black line is our fast moving average. It's a 9-period thing. So once it crosses over, say, I think we have the 50-day, then that's a bearish signal. Would y'all agree? And look what it did. It lasted a little bit longer, but it really sold off, right? And then it crossed back over, and and then it crossed over again. So it kind of tells you where the trend is kind of moving. So one of the ones that I like to use is just kind of a 20-day moving average. It kind of a 20 period. In a month, there's 20 days or 22 days in the thing. So it kind of uses that as a potential, where the trend is. Is it move? And a lot of people will just look at it and say, well, that's a downtrend, right? It's just going down. That's an uptrend. That's a downtrend. And, it helps you kind of understand where the price action is moving on a daily basis. So I like moving averages. I think the other one that we would look at is support and resistance. So, that just comes down to drawing kind of support levels. Like here is a really strong support level right now, somewhere in the 377 level. Would y'all agree with that? And then for resistance, it would be, somewhere like up in this level. So once it gets up here, it's going to be hard to get above it. You can see what happened here. The stock moved up, it got all the way up to this level, touched it, moved back down, came back up again, moved all the way right to it, and then it sold off again. And then on the bottom, it's hit this bottom 1, 2, 3, and now it's moved up. So that is kind of where support and resistance come into play. So if you add a few of these things together, they kind of, what you want is you want them all to kind of say the same thing. So for example, if it's oversold, you want the moving average or the trend line or support line to tell you that. And so that's the other piece. You want to use a few indicators, not too many, but the ones you like that can give you some kind of idea of where you think the stock is going to move next. So if you guys were looking at this chart, where would you say the price is going to go? All things being equal. Don't worry about CPI or all the other stuff, but would you say you think the price is going to move up, down, sideways? Any guesses?
Primarily, if you look in that channel, it's moving sideways. Is it gonna continue to inch up there? Geez, I don't know. I like to kind of overlay things with where the NIMO oscillator
Yeah, yeah,
is that as well,
yeah.
right? We're moving into overbought territory. Is that true? Overbought.
Yeah. Like if you look here at this RSI, and we could add in the
Yeah.
McClellan.
Yeah. RSI.